Welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I'm joined here, as always, by a man who's ready to talk some balls. Kyle, how are you doing?
Doing great. Still feel like I'm recovering from Vegas last weekend, but it was a blast. And I'm pumped for this episode, man. This is basically the start of our season. This is when it feels like everything's real. 2023 football season is right around the corner. Let's get into it, baby.
Yeah, it feels like there's like the three different parts, right? There's the season, there's the off season, but then there's the previews, and the previews are like that's like the I don't know, it's not quite the season, but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's like it's almost the anticipation, if you will.
Oh, what a
You're
word!
yeah, you're anticipating. You're getting excited.
Hmm.
Blood starts flowing, and it's like it's almost there. You can feel it, but it's not quite there yet. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think we're all aware. Yeah. I feel like it's like I don't know the movie trailers, right? It's not what you're there to see, but like I don't know, it can be entertaining to watch sometimes.
I agree, and
Hmm.
we're always entertaining to watch. Let's be
So,
honest.
yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah, let's not sell ourselves short. So, we are going to, a little bit of just setting up what we're going to do here. If you're new here, which some of you are, you might be a little confused. So, just the way this works, we are going to go through each of the 8 divisions, the next 8 podcasts every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. We will be going through the, divisions, talking about which, ranking each team from 1 to 4. In the past, I had done my sort of a little bit of there's some changes this year. Gotta say that because in the past I had done my algorithm, which I'm still kind of doing, but not exactly. I'm instead of ranking each team, each position group for each team, I'm just gonna give sort of a where I feel like they're about tier 1 to 5 because I feel like the issue is sometimes I feel like there's 6 teams that have like a tier 1 wide receiving core. So this year I'm just putting which tier I feel like it. I'm expecting it to belong into, and I'm going to give sort of a rough estimate of a win total. But I'm assuming you're still doing your side of things the same way, right? You have them ranked 1 to 4, and you have all 8 divisions ranked.
Yeah, my job is definitely not as hard as yours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ranking each of the divisions 1 through 8. I start off with that, then I go into each team 4 to 1, and then I see how I compare to you, basically. So my job's a lot easier, not much in depth, but I listen to what you say, I provide my own thoughts, and then we discuss. So it's a pretty straightforward episode. We do take an hour. Hope you're ready to strap in and talk about this division.
Yeah, and if you have any other questions, I'm sure you'll get it, understand it as we go along. Let's just jump into it. Why don't we? Who do you have at number 4 on the list? Connor saying commies first. Who is going to be a fourth on the list?
Yeah, and this is a strong division for the NFC
Yeah.
standards at least. I have it as the best division in the NFC. I
Hmm.
have it as the third best division in football. I think it's a strong division. I do see a scenario where all four of these teams could make the playoffs. I'm not
Uh-huh.
predicting all of them to make the playoffs, but I do think every one of these teams is capable, under the right circumstances, to make the playoffs. And that's definitely not true of the other divisions in the NFC. There's a
Right.
wide open conference.
Hmm.
I really like this team. I think that they could be an interesting player next season, but I do have the Washington Balls, the Washington Commanders,
Okay.
artists formerly known as the Balls, number 4 in the division right now. This was the top 10 defense last year. Actually, it was tied for 11th by PFF standards, but they were 7th in points allowed last year. The big problem with them, they couldn't score. They were 24th in scoring last year. And a lot of that had to do with they brought in Carson Wentz to try and fix the quarterback situation. Carson Wentz infamously did not work out all the way up until week 18, where they had a chance to make the playoffs, and it didn't go well. And so they moved on for Carson Wentz, and I think they got a pretty interesting quarterback situation this offseason. Will it be Jacoby Brissett? Will it be Sam Howell? I don't know how that's going to play out. I do think Jacoby Brissett provides a nice floor for this team that is better than what it was with Carson Wentz, and I do think that they could be a competitive team and challenging for a playoff spot this year.
Yeah, there's you can talk yourself into it. You really can with this team. There's definitely plenty of things to. Again, I think we talked about this earlier, but they kind of feel like one of those teams that is a there's not maybe the star talent, although there are a couple stars which we'll get into, but there's not a lot of holes in this roster either, outside of maybe the most important position quarterback. But even there's some optimism there as well.
Yeah, and it's an upgrade from last season. It really does feel like an upgrade from last season. They are very excited about Sam Howell. And, one of the things I said, I think a week or two ago, like, if Sam Howell wins this job over Jacoby Brissett, I think that says more about Sam Howell than the state of the quarterback position. Like if he's able to
Mhm.
win this job over a proven vet who's had good years in the past, I think that's a huge win for Washington and where this team could be at going forward.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Let's just jump into it, why don't we? And let's start off with those two most important people. Although in this case it's three. Usually the two most important people are the head coach and the quarterback, but we don't know exactly which quarterback it's going to be. So first you have Ron Rivera, who I think is sort of is Ron Rivera almost the baseline of like if you're worse than Ron Rivera, you're probably not going to be a head coach. But if you're better than Ron Rivera, then like at least you can hang around for a while.
That's probably exactly what he is at this point.
Hmm.
I like Ron Rivera.
Yeah.
He seems like a great guy. I
Hmm.
don't think he's a bad coach, but at the same time, like I think his offense can be a little old school sometimes. He obviously was if you go back to the Riverboat Ron stuff, he was one of the first to really kind of push, let's just go for it on fourth down more and more, be more aggressive, that kind of stuff. But it seems like the rest of the league has kind of caught up to him in that. And like I don't think he's an awesome X's and O's guy, but he clearly understands football and people like playing for him. It seems like he's a pretty well liked guy in the locker room year after year.
Yeah, I still think I think he'd be a really good defensive coordinator if he just sort of focused on that. I still think he's a solid head coach. The Riverboat Ron thing. This is a tangent, but I feel like that was mostly that was the year that they went 7-8-1 and still won the division. It was mostly just like they were so bad for a while. What they went like 11 straight weeks without winning a game and still won the division. They were like he kind of just said, let's just screw it. Let's just start going for broke and see what happens. And then they started winning, and so that kind of he almost like lucked his way into that.
Yeah. Well, and wasn't it basically like they had Cam Newton and not a lot of good players, so of course you're just
Right.
going to use Newton as much as possible. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, it wasn't really reinventing the wheel, but obviously it got into the playoffs. So
Hey, he made a decision. I guess he gets credit for it.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I do like him. He is probably a tier 4 coach, tier 3, maybe low tier 3. But like you said, he's one of those guys that he's been in the league a long time. He kind of understands it, and you don't think he's ever going to be a bad coach. That's the one thing.
Yeah. For quarterback, I actually don't have this as tier 5. I have it as tier 4. I think Jacoby Brissett to me brings it up to tier 4. I don't think he's a disaster of a quarterback. And again, I'm just evaluating this first year. What's going to happen this year? It's like a lot of rookie quarterbacks are going to be the tier 5 guys, but tier 4. I think they should have at least, like you said, better quarterback play than they had last year.
I think it will be better. We've been over this all off season. This is the
Mhm.
Jacoby Brissett podcast. We both like him. Like obviously, neither one of us are running, going to bet an MVP ticket on Jacoby Brissett or anything. But we do think he's a solid starting quarterback and at least, replacement level. And guess what? Replacement level is probably much better than what they had last season and much more stable than what they had last season. Because I mean, Carson Wentz, we've gone over this a few times too. He has the flashes still of being a brilliant player that he was years ago, but there is not a lot of stability in terms of what he does in games. He's a little bit of a little bit hectic sometimes. And I think at least if Brissett's back there, or even if it's Howell, you're probably going to get a much more level-headed quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And like you said, well, a lot of people are saying Howe might be the starter as well. If he ends up being the starter, that's probably a good thing. If he can beat out Brissett, that's probably a good thing. So I guess the only concern is maybe they start him because he's the young guy. They want to see what they get out of him, even if he's not ready.
Yeah, I mean that could be the solution. You just if they don't feel like this is a playoff team, they could just kind of say, let's see what he's got and see if he's worth keeping around this year, or draft for quarterback next year. I mean, I do think that's a possibility. I wouldn't be shocked too if we see how, even if he doesn't win the starting job week 1, I wouldn't be shocked if we see Howell at all this season as a
Yeah.
starter.
Yeah, I think I agree. The wide receiving core, I have tier 2.
Mhm.
There's so many good receiving cores. It's hard to. Everyone feels like their receiving core should be higher than it is, but tier 2, and I think it has a chance to be tier 1 if it lives up to the potential. McLaurin is very good. He's a number 1 receiver in my opinion. Although you could argue is he a high end number 1 receiver or a low end number 1 receiver is maybe the discussion. But Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, tight end Logan Thomas, maybe they could use a little better scenario there. But as a whole, this is you got 3 very good options here for Washington, so I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I like this group. I liked what I saw from Dotson year 1. I liked him in the draft. I think Curtis Samuel is also a very, very solid number 3 option at receiver. McLaurin, I think, is a stud. it's so hard to say what is a high end tier one anymore because there's just so many good receivers. But I do
Hmm.
feel like, better quarterback probably helps McLaurin a lot in that case. You know, Logan Thomas is a guy that I feel like is better in theory than actual execution. Like I feel like we're
Hmm.
waiting for him to be better than what he actually is. And I
Yeah.
just don't know if he is that. So it'll be interesting to see if he can have a breakout season because he kind of reminds me a little bit of David Njoku the last few years with Cleveland, where it's like all this talent's there, it just hasn't really come together. Maybe this is the year it all comes together for him. And then this is a really dangerous receiving core if it is.
Yeah, definitely. As for the offensive line, a lot of new guys, a lot of newcomers here. In fact,
Yeah.
three out of their, only two players are going to continue to be, were here last year. They're going to be here this year, and one of them, Samuel Cosme, played right tackle last year. Now looks like he's going to play guard. They added elite right tackle Andrew Wiley to play the guard position. They also have, added Nick Gates and Ricky Stromberg. Stromberg, a rookie, and then Charles Leno Jr., who I like. But as a whole, this is a there's some concerns here with this offensive line. I did still go tier 3 though.
Yeah, I think there's a couple solid players. By the way, did you not like the comment Terry is a fast Cooper Cup? I think that's you know, here in the
Interesting.
chat. Yeah, so Terry McLaurin is a faster version of maybe the best receiver in the league. So that's all he is.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite. I think they have. I also think they have pretty different play styles. I think Terry McLaurin much more of an outside threat.
Yeah, he is good.
Hmm.
That's just a little bold. He'd be the best receiver in the league.
Yeah,
Um,
probably, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a couple nice pieces on this offensive line. I think Cosme's all right. Maybe the rookie works out. Leno's all right, but it's also one of those situations where you bring in Andrew Wiley and it might actually be an upgrade over what you had, which is a bit of a cause for concern because
Hmm.
this has not been a very friendly podcast to Andrew Wiley over the years, um, and he's stable compared to what they had, but I do think it's a little bit. I still think that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I guess the one thing I would argue though is there might not be a massive hole in this offensive line, and that's kind of why I still have it ahead of. That's why I still have it as it's a low tier 3 for me, but I still have it as tier 3 because I feel like there's some worse offensive lines out there.
There's definitely some worse offensive lines. I agree with that. I mean, the one thing would be like if Stromberg's not good right away, and all of a sudden, I think this interior offensive line could be very bad if they don't have a stable presence at center. But I think overall, it's going to be pretty fine.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So that's the offense. And again, Washington, a lot of tier 3s. I feel like that's kind of that's who they are to a T is a lot of tier 3s. Their coverage unit is so fascinating to me because they drafted Emmanuel Forbes to play corner. You also have Kendall Fuller in the mix. I think it's good. For the safeties, you have Cameron Curl and looks like Derek Forrest are the two guys. You also have Danny Johnson as sort of a third corner there. You know, it really comes down to Forbes, right? It comes down to how good is
Mhm.
Forbes going to be right away. So I think I kind of have to stick with the tier 3 trend and go tier 3 just because, like, I think this has potential to be a tier 1, but it also has potential to be tier 4 or 5 if Forbes doesn't work out or just takes time to develop.
Yeah, if he's not ready right away, that's a bit of a problem. I
Hmm.
still think, like you said, Fuller's good. I really like Cameron Curl. I like some of these guys in the secondary, but yeah, I mean, it is a young secondary. It's an unproven secondary, and they're asking a lot of some young guys in this team to be able to compete right away. Like even, the other rookie they drafted, Jartavius Martin, might be a big part of this secondary as well in year one. So having two rookies potentially playing a lot of snaps in year one isn't usually a recipe for success in the secondary, but they have had a good secondary over the years. And the other three guys in the starting lineup, when you're looking at Fuller, looking at Forrest, and you're looking at Curl, that's a pretty good group to, as a baseline.
Yeah, I think so as well. Yeah, man, and Ron Rivera does a good job at coaching up this secondary. I think that's something he usually does a pretty good job of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's always seemed to have some pretty good players back there, whether it's Carolina or Washington. And I
Mhm.
don't, I'm trying to think back. I don't think we were really optimistic about this group last year, and they really impressed. And part of it was, Curl kind of became a real stud back there. and Fuller kind of bounced back into form, and that turned into a pretty decent group all of a sudden when we weren't optimistic about it going into the season.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Let's move on to the front seven. The front seven, we have for the defensive line. You got a lot of big names here. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, and Chase Young. Those are four players that you know who they are. I mean, people have jerseys of all four of those guys. You also have James Smith Williams as sort of their extra edge guy. It's really those four guys though. It's their starters on the defensive line that you're going to note. Linebackers, will this be the breakout Jamon Davis year? I don't know. Is Cody Barton gonna be able to do a ton? I don't know if that either. So it's interesting because I think that I really like this defensive line. I think for pass rush, again, what are we gonna get out of Chase Young is a question. I don't know how much I love the depth here. So I think I'm gonna go tier 2 pass rush, and I guess I'll go tier 2 run defense as well. You could talk me into tier 3, but I'm sticking with tier 2.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm expecting a big breakout year from Chase Young. I still believe in the talent, and
It's possible.
he's been hurt, and obviously that's been a big part. But like when he's played, he's still been pretty good. His rookie year was still obviously his best year. He hasn't been quite that good since his rookie year, but I still think he's been solid since when he has played. He just hasn't played. He hasn't been healthy, and I think that's the problem. I'm expecting a big breakout year. It's a big prove it year for him because they declined his 5th-year option. So he's got a lot of expectations. He's got to earn that next contract. I think he's going to have a big year. Montez Sweat kind of broke out in the way I was expecting the year before. He had a monster year. Allen's a beast. I think Payne could have a bounce back season. I really like this front seven. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So that is the defense. So again, not really any so far. The only thing below tier 3 is quarterback, although there's still no tier 1s in the mix. Finally, kickers. I'm going Joey Sly. I'm going tier 4. He was fine last year. Had an 83 field goal percentage. Sort of known for having a big leg, but at the end of the day, the goal was to put the ball in between the posts more so than being able to kick it far. It's fine. Has had his moments. Did play for 3 teams in 2021, so it's like definitely has moved around the league a bit, but fine.
He's all right.
Yeah. So as a whole, predictions time for the win total for Washington. Out of obviously the maximum you could get would be 17. I don't think this is going to be a terrible roster by any means, but I think that the lack of quarterback play I think will hurt. The fact that they have kind of solid play around I think will help. I think I'm going to go with an 8 prediction for Washington.
8 and 9.
Yeah, 8 and 9.
I think that's fair. I think that's probably where they end up, but I do think there's a lot of variance with this team, in my opinion. Like, I do think that they could end up 9-10 wins and competing for a playoff spot, but I do see a scenario where this kind of bottoms out, especially if those quarterbacks aren't ready. If Brissett has a down year or if Sam Howell gets the starting job and isn't ready to take on that role, I could see them taking a step back offensively, which wasn't a good offense to begin with. So I do think that could play a part. And while I like their defense, I like the defense a lot. I'm a little concerned about the depth, right? Like, we already talked about there could be 2 rookies in the secondary playing substantial roles. There's Chase Young and Montez Sweat and Jonathan Allen. But if one of those guys get hurt, I do think that could slip too. And if this isn't a top 10 defense again, that's a bit of a problem for this team because I just don't know, even if the offense improves marginally, I don't know if they're going to put up enough points to really make a difference.
Yeah. Chat, let me know. Do you have the over or under? If 8 wins is my projection, are you saying taking over or under? Kyle, what would you say, over or under?
I'd probably lean under just because it feels like the safe bet.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if a good win total for this team would be like 7.5, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I think it feels like there's more scenarios where they win less than 8 games than where they win more than 8 games.
Yeah. By the way, I don't think we talked running backs at all with the team. But
I missed the running back. That was unintentional. I like the running backs. I like. I was a big Brian Johnson fan coming out of college. Another one of my many great running back predictions. And Antonio Gibson's solid. It's fine. Tier 3.
Yeah, I like Robinson. I think he's a solid player. our early, our first division episode. It's gonna work out the kinks here.
Yeah, I swear it's not being a running back hater for getting it. You know what it is? It's I have it weirdly in my notes. Where my notes I have it differently than like where I have my grading scale, so I have them in different order, and that's what threw me off.
It's all good. I just
Glad
thought
I
of it
explained
now.
that. Who
So
cares? No one cares about
yeah,
why I screwed it up. Yeah, didn't need that. Sorry. A bad 30 seconds of podcasting there.
it's all good. Ready to move on?
Yes, ready to move on. 3 teams left, 3 playoff teams left. Will now I think betting favorites would say the Giants would be here. In fact, some might have even said you could argue the Giants number 4. I think just the odds going into the season, if you look like Vegas, that's kind of where they could be. But the Giants have been better than what Vegas had said all last year. Are you buying into the Giants hype, or will this be where we have New York here?
I still have the Giants here. I do see a scenario where they're a playoff team and potentially jump one of the 2 teams in front of them. But I think right now they are firmly in the 3rd spot in preseason predictions. I do think that they've spent a lot of money this offseason. They went and got some pass catchers to help Daniel Jones. They paid Daniel Jones. We'll see how this Saquon Barkley thing works out. Obviously, he wants the long-term contract. We'll see how it plays out. They paid Dexter Lawrence a lot of money, which is a good thing because he is very good. And they went and drafted a corner, which was probably their biggest need in the offseason, in Deontay Banks. So I think overall it was solid work, even though they paid a lot of money for guys like Daniel Jones. We've gone over that over and over again. Daniel Jones had a solid season. So if he's that again, you can at least say he was basically played to what they valued him last season. So yeah, I have the Giants here at 3. Unless one of these guys really breaks out a receiver, I don't see it really moving higher. But at the same time, they defied the expectations last year. Maybe they do it again.
Yeah, I mean that's really what it comes down to, right? Because again, those top 2, people at each, in each situation. You have Brian Dable, the head coach, who it's like, he was so good last year. He was literally voted the best coach of the year last year. So like, okay, if you can replicate that, then that could potentially be something to continue to have you win more games than you should. Daniel Jones was like solid last season. Daniel Jones was not a bad quarterback last year at all. Now, in a contract year, having 1 year where you were, I think PFF had him ranked as like the 17th best quarterback. I don't know how great you feel about that. I do have him still as a tier 4 quarterback in my rankings right now, but there's hope for a young quarterback to get better and a good coach to continue to be good. Maybe, if the Giants are good this year, it's going to be because of those 2 things, right?
Yeah, it would seem that way. And I mean, if you look at Daniel Jones, like he was still PFF's 19th best passer out of 34 quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He was the 4th best runner. He obviously maximized his running ability last
Uh-huh.
season, and that was a big part of his success in the running
Yeah.
game in general. So I do think that played a huge part in it. I do think for this team to reach the next level, he's going to have to throw more and complete more passes, especially downfield. Now, granted, I'm willing to say, because Giants fans love to bring it up, that his receivers were so bad he wasn't going to complete a lot of passes anyway. It was a
Uh-huh.
really bad receiving core last year, unspeakably bad receiving core last year. It's marginally better this year. I do think it is marginally better, but is it enough to really maximize his ability to throw the ball? I don't know, because I just don't see a scenario where he's a top 10 passer next season. I just don't. I think he's going to really need a strong receiving core to boost up those numbers, and I just don't see it, even with a guy like Darren Waller, who I think is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the Giants they're definitely interesting. Where I feel like they're almost the anti Washington in a way, where Washington is so much like they have just consistent players at the board. The Giants have some real bright spots, but some real flaws as well. And in the skill position group, they have both. I mean, you first have Saquon Barkley, who is an elite level running back. I have it as a tier 1 running back room with what he was able to do last year. Um, and Matt Breida, a solid backup as well. The receiving core, Darren Waller, when he's healthy, is fantastic. Is getting up there in age, but I still think that was a good, definitely a great trade for them to go out and get that guy. You have guys who are kind of like Isaiah Hodgins. I'm really interested in. He's very young. Like I think that maybe he could actually be something. Darius Slayton, Wandale Robinson. They drafted another wide receiver, Jalen Hyatt. There's guys who they like. Uh, every receiving core has guys they like. Every receiving core has good players, I still have this as a tier 5 receiving core because, like, the reality is I think there probably are 25 better receiving cores still in the league than the Giants.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. Like you said, like I liked what I saw from Wandale when he played last season. I
Yeah.
think he has potential. Hodgins definitely has potential too. Like you said, Waller when healthy is good. So those are good things, but none of those guys are really. I mean, Waller can be, but at the same time, unless your tight end's Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews, I'm just not really sold on your receiving core being built around a tight end.
Hmm.
And then if you just look at beyond it, like I kind of like Jameson Crowder. I don't think he stinks, but at the same time, you know, there's not a lot of proven commodities around him. He's not a number one, number two, number three guy. Um, Jalen Hyatt was awesome last season. He was one of the best receivers in college football. I do think he has a ton of talent. His straight line speed's phenomenal. But I also think if you look at that Tennessee offense and what it does, receivers get open pretty easily on it. I don't know how much Jalen Hyatt's doing to get open on those plays. I don't really know how that's going to translate. So it's kind of a wait and see mode with a lot of these guys because, sure, there's a scenario where Hodgins takes a leap, Slayton gets a little bit better, uh, Waller's fantastic and healthy, Hyatt's a good rookie, and who was the last guy I was just thinking of? Oh, Robinson is healthy and good again. That this receiving core is obviously all right. But I don't think it's ever going to be a tier 1 or tier 2 receiving core. And a lot of things have to happen for it to get to tier 3.
Yeah, it does have upside though. I definitely will give it that. And if you're a Giants fan, you can talk yourself into it for sure. To round out the offense, go to offensive line, which is another weak spot of this team, in my opinion. Now, again, there is a scenario where this is a great offensive line. Like that's on the table. Is this has a ton of potential? This offensive line. Andrew Thomas is one of the best offensive linemen in the league and one of the best players in the league. Mark Lanowski, I think, is a good guard. Although I don't think he had his best year last year for the Giants, but I still think he's a solid player who I would expect to bounce back. Then he plays right guard. The other inside offensive lineman, John Michael Smith, the second round center who they drafted. We'll see how he works out. Some people really liked him out of college. You also have Joshua Edendu, something like that. Who again? We're back in the season of me trying to pronounce very difficult to pronounce names. He was a third round pick who only played a couple games last year. So this is going to be his first time we really get some playing time. And then there's the Evan Neal of it all. And that's the real discussion is he was one of the worst offensive linemen in the league last year. He just was. There's no getting around it. He really struggled. But, like I think I kind of said heading into this, part of why I had him as my number 3rd rated tackle out of that draft was because I kind of felt like he was going to take a little bit of time to develop, but I also felt like he would. He kind of, to me, seemed like more of a project guy. Well, is he Andrew Thomas 2.0? Thomas also had a very bad rookie year, or is he just not that great? And that happens as well. We can take guesses, but really all we can do right now is guess about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's if you want to remain optimistic about Evan Neal, you look right across the new line of scrimmage and see Andrew Thomas because he was rough his rookie year. He's bounced back in a big way, and like you said, 2 years later is one of the best players in football. So, yeah, I mean, this entire offensive line comes down to Evan Neal and John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. So, those two guys have to be good, and they have to develop, and they have to be ready to play. Because if you have two weaknesses in your offensive line, you don't have a good offensive line. That's the problem. But if those two guys are good, then yeah, I mean, I think this offensive line could be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. So that is the offense, a very inconsistent offense, but I think should be better than it was last year, at least talent wise.
It should be. On paper, it is a better offense. So there's no doubt about that. Now, could we entertain the fact that Daniel Jones regresses to the mean of what his career has been?
It's possible. I always kind of felt like he got too much criticism early on in his career because of when he was drafted, because he was overdrafted. But I always kind of felt like he was like a better quarterback than people gave him credit for. He was always a pretty mobile guy who could, in a good situation, make throws. And I think what the Giants, here's what I'm concerned more about. Isn't he regresses, more so teams learn how to play him better, sort of force him to throw the ball deep, almost like what we saw with Trubisky. I think Jones the better player than Trubisky, but I think they have a similar play style. And I think that once teams sort of figured out the best way to play Trubisky, it was just over. I'm not sure if it'd be over for Jones, but I could see him regressing pretty heavily.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility too. I mean, it's just, it was a breakout season and it was a solid season, but we'll see what happens this season. He's got to prove it again. And then, of course, we'll see how this offseason plays out. But there is the Saquon to it all, where along with this running game, Saquon's we don't value running backs really in this podcast, but Saquon's kind of an important part of this offense.
Yeah.
And if he's not playing, if he's not on the team, or something happens with this contract holdout, that's going to be a bit of a problem when it comes to the future of this offense, because I do think he is an important part of it, and he's got to stay healthy again, which I think we could say that about every team, but Saquon is an important part of this team.
Yeah. Let's go to the defense. Let's start off with the coverage. It's coverage is so fluky year in and year out. They have some players. So I feel like have had better years than what they did last year. I thought, like Adoree Jackson and Xavier McKinney, a couple guys who I'm not overly excited about. With Darnay Holmes as maybe hopefully a third corner for them, and Jason Pinnock as the other safety. Really feels like they're hoping that first round pick Deonte Banks can come in and really be a difference maker right away, which you might be able to. I don't know. It's totally possible. But when you're relying a lot on a rookie corner, there's some concern there for me. And I also don't know if I love this one as much as Washington. So I think, me being a Giants hater, that narrative is going to continue a little bit. I think I'm going to go tier 4 coverage unit. But again, coverage is so fluky that it's not the worst thing in the world to have that be a weakness of your roster heading into the season.
Yeah. I do think there is a little more upside here. Aaron Robinson healthy, I think, can be a pretty good player out there. You look across, there's a lot of pieces here. It's just kind of putting together who's actually going to start and get the reps. I like Deonte Banks. I thought he was a good corner prospect, and I thought he was a good get for them in the first round. I think him and Adoree Jackson could be pretty solid. Whether it's Jason Pinnock or Bobby McCain, I think pairing next to Xavier McKinney could be all right, because I expect Xavier McKinney to have a bounce back season. And I do think, at least, if you look at like Bobby Okereke, that's a good coverage linebacker too, which isn't a bad thing to have in front of him.
Yeah, that's definitely worth bringing up. Well, let's talk about Okereke and the rest of the front seven. Him and Gerard Davis, but he's definitely, Okereke's definitely the guy. I'm hoping you pronounced it right, because I'm just copying your pronunciation there.
I think so.
The defensive line had some stars on it for sure, with Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Azeez Ojulari, maybe this is his breakout year. I don't know. I would like them maybe to have another. The third edge guy sort of seems to be O'Shane Ximenez. Maybe they could use an upgrade there. But a lot of stuff to like about this front seven. I think there's some depth issues here. I think I'm still going to go tier 2 for both run defense and pass rush, though, because I like the stars.
Yeah, the stars are fantastic. I mean, Dexter Lawrence, probably for my money, the third best interior defensive lineman in football, right? Like, you put him behind Aaron Donald and Chris Jones, but I mean, that's not a bad company to keep with, right? So I think he's fantastic. I think he's a huge part of this team and rightfully got paid. I think Thibodeau showed the flashes of being a brilliant player, and obviously the hype that he's gotten since high school looked warranted in year one. I do think people were hyping him a little too much. I think there was some inconsistency there, but you definitely saw the flash plays that make him look special. So I think that is definitely a group that is special. And then, like I said, I like Okereke at linebacker, and I think that's a really good group overall. Though, at least those 4 guys, if you look at Okereke at linebacker, Williams, Lawrence, Thibodeau, that is a special group of front 7 guys.
Yeah. So that, and then I forgot to mention the kicking situation. Graham Gano, who has had a very long career for Graham Gano. I think he's still very good. I'll give him tier 2. I forgot to put it in my notes, but I'm going to give Graham Gano tier 2.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. He's been in the league a long time. Hit some big kicks.
So, what is my prediction for the Giants? What is my win total prediction? And I purposely didn't write anything down on my win predictions until this podcast, because I wanted to, you say some important things sometimes, some helpful things. I want to, make sure that I don't, I listen to that before I give my official prediction. the thing is, it's like, I don't know, they don't have a ton of can you hear? There's a car going off outside. I hope it's not picking up on the microphone. But
I cannot hear it. You're good.
okay, good. The handy expensive microphone coming, making its money here, showing why I spent it here. I'm giving the Giants 7 wins. I just am. I just think there's too many holes in this roster. I like the coaching staff. I'm betting against them, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But this is just, to me, I feel like they're a team that got a little lucky last year, and I'm not expecting that to repeat.
Wow. So you got currently the Commanders over the Giants right now. Is that right?
Yes. And tell me over under in the chat. I know Giants fans are going to say, a lot of unders probably a lot of people saying, that feels a bit high.
I mean, look, this team won 9 games last year. It was a fantastic season. It was fun. They won a playoff game and tied one. They did tie one. But, you look at the 2022 team grades from PFF. They were the 29th overall team, 24th in offense, 30th in defense, 26th in special teams. That is not the analytics of a 9-win football team.
Right.
So, does it regress to the mean? I do think that's a possibility. But I do see a scenario where maybe this is just a well-coached team that doesn't make mistakes and doesn't beat itself, and that's how they pull out these football games. But I'm probably siding with you there that I would lean under for them too. I do think there's scenarios where both them and Washington are good, but I do think that they could end up around 6-7 wins each.
And I believe that their Vegas, a lot of Giants fans are not thrilled with me as I expected. I believe the Vegas over-under is also at 7.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Mm-hmm. But again, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, if you look at those analytics, you're thinking that's like a 4-win team. They won 9 games. So, I do think that there's reason for there's reason to be a little pessimistic if you're on the outside. And obviously, if you're on the inside, if you're a Giants fan, you're saying, we won 9 games, we won a playoff game. This is a good football team. I'll be honest with you right now. We're going to do NFC North next week. Not optimistic about the Vikings, who you beat in the playoffs either. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's going to be an interesting season to see how year 2 Brian Daboll, because he blew away expectations in year 1. He did.
Yeah, and I just looked it up. It's 7.5 is the over/under officially for the Giants. So if you think I'm crazy, go bet the over. And I'll say this though, I bet against the Giants all year last year. Metaphorically, they proved me wrong all year. So who's to say they can't do it again?
Yeah, I mean they definitely can.
Yeah, but all right, 2 teams left. We have the team that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl versus the team with a very long Super Bowl drought currently running in the with the Cowboys. I think they might have like the longest conference championship drought currently going potentially, or I think something like that. Dallas Cowboys, Philadelphia Eagles. Who do you have finishing second in this division?
I do have the Cowboys. I do think they had a very good. I think they had a very quietly great offseason. And this is a team that graded out as a top 10 football team last season. They were top 15 in offense and defense. They were 3rd in points scored. They were 6th in points allowed. This is a very dynamic team, top to bottom. There's just a couple holes, and there's a couple things that make me, hold back from saying this is the class of the NFC East and potentially the class of the NFC. They do not get elite quarterback play, which you can win with that elite quarterback play, but not when it's $40 million quarterback play. Right. So I think that's a bit of a problem. I am never going to trust the coaching staff. I'm never going to trust Mike McCarthy as a head coach. But there is so much talent on this team that I think it at least establishes a great floor. And I think this team does have a high floor, even if I don't have it as a ceiling as a tier 1 NFC team. Because, I mean, if you look around the rest of the roster, this team does have tier 1 NFL talent across the board. It's just key spots where they're maybe lacking 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah, things to really like about this team. Let's start with the, I don't know, maybe one of the most vanilla quarterbacks in the NFL, Dak Prescott, who isn't bad. But listen, vanilla ice cream solid. I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying it's not necessarily the most exciting here with Prescott, who, I have him as a tier 3 quarterback. He feels like the prototypical tier 3. He's a above average tier 3 quarterback, I would say, but that feels like the right tier for him. Have head coach Mike McCarthy at tier 4. And I think that's kind of the main thing maybe holding this team back is just the, that area, because you're right, there is a ton of talent, which we'll get to, but like the most important position, you're paying $40 million for a tier 4 quarterback or 3 quarterback, which I guess is better than paying it for a tier 4 quarterback like the Giants are doing, but still, it's a little bit tough.
Yeah. I mean, Prescott has stayed pretty consistent to who he is basically since the end of the league. He's basically
Mhm.
like from 65 to 68% completion percentage. He's gonna, he got hurt last season, which obviously played a part. He's gonna throw from like 3,800 to 4,400 yards, and he's gonna get about 35 touchdowns. Now, last year the big thing was the interceptions. He had 15 interceptions, which was not good. Very high interception percentage, but overall, like he's basically been who he is the entire time. He's not tricking anyone, which is a fine quarterback, but at the same time, it just there's just something about him that leaves a lot to be desired. And I still am adamant that like we saw it with Matthew Stafford and what he did taking the Rams to the Super Bowl. I do believe that Dak Prescott has the capability of having a Matthew Stafford, Joe Flacco, or like run. He's basically the same level of quarterback. He just doesn't have that kind of run in him yet. He does have that sort of ability where he can go on a run and help this team win a Super Bowl. We just haven't seen it yet. And I mean, if we're going to be honest, the playoff performances have been bad for him. So I think that's something that's been a problem.
Yeah, and that kind of thing too. I always feel like I agree. He does have to kind of run in him. I'm going to read my number 13 through 19 on my quarterback rankings. Actually, 13 through 20 on my quarterback rankings. I went Kyler, Cousins, Prescott, Carr, Tannehill, Goff, Fields, and Wilson. Russell Wilson. Couldn't all those guys potentially have that kind of run in them? Like I think you could say that about a lot
Yeah.
of players.
Yeah, I definitely do think that's possible. Like
Hmm.
I don't think there's that much separating Matthew Stafford from those guys. like
Sure. Yeah.
and I mean Stafford put it together for one postseason. And that's been basically the difference between his narrative and their narratives. Um,
Hmm.
you know, it'll be interesting to see what it is. I think they I do think he has the capability, but he just hasn't quite put it together yet. And I mean, I guess the one thing with the Cowboys is like, if it doesn't work this season, which I don't even know what anymore, what doesn't work for the Cowboys is it win a Super Bowl? Because that's probably not going to work. If it doesn't work for the Cowboys this season, if they lose their first playoff game, do you have to move on? Is it time to cut bait?
I think for McCarthy, yes. I think that's what they'll do. I think they're going to get rid of McCarthy, but I think they're going to keep the quarterback for at least a little longer. That would be my prediction for them.
It's also easier to get rid of the coach. Like,
Yeah.
because if you're getting rid of the quarterback, like, you're probably starting over. Unless you, like, trade for Kyler Murray, which could happen. Um,
Yeah.
you're
That's a fair
probably
point. It's
starting
like, who do you get? But yeah.
yeah. You're probably starting over with a tier 5 guy or a young guy that you're hoping develops into a tier 1 or tier 2 guy. And yeah, I mean it's tough to hit the reset button. It's easy for us to say it on a podcast. It's tough when you're running a football team to then say, "Hey, I know we had a solid quarterback, but we're going to get rid of him and bring in a young guy who might be good in 3 years." Especially when this team has gone all out to be really good.
Yeah, and the way that Prescott's contract is structured too is that if they got rid of him after this season, they'd still have to pay him 61 million. That's just $62 million in dead cap, and that's the last year of his deal. So he's playing out his deal.
Yeah, that is true. So,
Mhm.
never mind. He will play his next season.
Unless
But
maybe
I
there's a trade and someone takes on like a big chunk of that money.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I just think at what point do they say it's insane to go back to this again? But I think prior to he's had talent in previous years, but I I think this might be his most talented supporting cast. I really do, and he's had a lot of talented supporting casts.
I don't know if it's better than his first year, but I would probably say it's best since that year.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, if you look across this group, go ahead and get into it. Go into your spiel
Yeah,
here.
let's just jump into it. The receiving core, I definitely think has real potential here. You got CeeDee Lamb, who I think proved himself as a number one receiver last year. Brandon Cooks, who's been a consistent number two guy, and then Michael Gallup, who at times has been a great like number two option, even though was the number three option, but not last year coming off of an injury. Also, I think losing Schultz should hurt. Jake Ferguson has definitely showed the flashes, but this is a good receiving core, so I have it as tier 3.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. I've been on the CD Lamb bandwagon. since the draft, and he's constantly proved himself to be the guy. He had his best season of his career last year. I think he is a number one. Brandon Cooks is very clearly a number two and slots in here nicely. Gallup, I think, could have a bounce back season, even though I've kind of soured on him a little bit. I think he's okay. But now as a number three, I do think that kind of fits his role a lot better. And I do like Ferguson. I like Dalton Schultz a little more, but I do like Jake Ferguson. And I still think he could be a productive tight end. So a lot of skill there, a lot of players to work with. Brandon Cook's going to be huge for this team.
Yeah, I think so as well. And for running backs, Tony Pollard. You also have Malik Davis in there. Pollard's really good. This is the tier 2 running back room for me.
Yeah, it is a really good running back room. I guess the one thing is Ezekiel Elliott hasn't been good for a few years. But he did provide a role of, he was overpaid, but he did provide a role of a big physical back for this team, who I thought blocked pretty well too.
Yeah.
They don't have that.
Except that when he's playing center.
Yeah. When he's playing center, he is not a good center. He's a good blocking running back for sure.
Yes.
So, you don't have that now though. Does that take a hit to, some of the other things that kind of, this offense has been really good statistically over the last few years. And a lot of it is Prescott gets clean pockets because they block well. They have a running back who can pick up blitzes. And, some of these little things that I think Elliott did to keep it, rolling, not having that, does that hurt going forward?
That play last year was easily a top 5 funniest playoff plays of all time.
I don't think it's getting enough credit for how funny it was.
Yeah, because everyone brings up, like, oh my God, something happened again. It's like, but this is funny in such a unique way.
Yeah, like we watched the butt fumble literally every season. This was almost funnier because it's I don't know. I think it needs to get talked about more.
You try something so unique and so like different, and it just fails immediately. It just like does not work whatsoever. There's so much build up. What's going to happen? And just it completely falls apart immediately.
And we all knew it wasn't going to work. We all knew it wasn't going to work. We saw the Colts play however many years ago, too. And that one we see yearly now. And Pat McAfee has to go back on his show every year to talk about the play. This was just the difference is that Pat McAfee has said he wasn't supposed to snap the ball in that scenario.
Right.
Unless he saw a very specific look. The intention was Ezekiel Elliott to snap this ball at center, which makes it even worse.
Yeah, I'd love to hear someone it's like how McAfee gave that deep dive as to what went wrong. I'd love to see someone on the maybe in 10 years when a Cowboys player is hosting a popular YouTube show, they'll do the same explanation, and then we'll get to know.
Yeah, that was still so funny. Still so funny.
Yeah, incredible. Offensive line is good. I have it as a tier 2 offensive line. Tyron Smith, I'm always worried about his health, but if he's healthy, he's very good. And if he is healthy, I mean, guard combo of Tyler Smith and Zach Martin could be like, that's like the best guard combo in the league, right? Assuming Smith plays as well at guard as he does, as he did at tackle. I think probably I would probably say the weak spot of this offensive line is center Tyler Badaz, who is still it's not a bad weak spot to have. It's not. I think he's a fine center, and if you're going to have a weak spot, center is probably the spot to have it. I think Terrence Steele is a solid right tackle. So it's a good offensive line. I think if you told me Tyron Smith's going to play 1,000 snaps, I'd probably bump it up to tier 1.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. If Tyron Smith plays, it's tier 1. Even if Badaz hasn't quite worked out the way they were hoping, but still, it's pretty good overall. They have 4 really solid guys when healthy. I like this group a lot, and it's been kind of the framework to where this Cowboys team has succeeded over the years too, because they block really well, whether it's in the running game or the passing game.
Yeah. So that's the offense for the Cowboys. The defense, you got some stars here for sure, and some depth, and then some not so much. Actually, I think depth's probably a weakness, but the stars are definitely there in the Cowboys appropriately with the Trayvon Diggs, Stephon Gilmore cornerback duo, Deron Bland being the number 3 guy, Malik Hooker and Jalen Kearse as the top 2 safeties there. And then, even, I don't know, Leighton Vander Esch can do some nice things in coverage as well. This is a tier 1 coverage unit for me.
Man, getting Stephon Gilmore on the cheap is just
Yeah.
such a big move for this team because
Hmm.
look, I mean, we've done the Trevon Diggs song and dance over and over again. Like, yes, he makes a lot of big splash plays. Obviously, there's still a lot to be desired in down to down coverage.
But he was a lot better last year. I think
He was
that
better.
narrative
I
is
would,
yeah.
yeah, I would
He made
agree
my
with
top
that.
10 corner list. I think he was really good last year.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, Gilmore's just a better coverage guy.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
if he's going to be, if Diggs is your number two guy, I feel like that's even better for him. You
Yeah.
know, so that's going to help a lot. I loved watching Malik Hooker last year, seeing him finally healthy and kind of harness all that insane potential he had. I thought was really fun. I mean, yeah, I mean that they're 5 or 6 deep in secondary. Like I do worry about some of the depth at their defensive spots, but secondary is definitely not one of them because they have Curse and Hooker. They got Donovan Wilson's a nice piece too. You look at Diggs, you look at Gilmore, you look at Deron Bland. Like that's a lot of really nice pieces that can come in and help. I don't even think Kelvin Joseph stinks. Like there's a lot of pieces here that I think are pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. As for the front seven, again, got some stars and some what you could maybe use an upgrade in certain areas. Edge rushers, the Micah Parsons Demarcus Lawrence combo is, you could argue that with the best edge combos in the league. You could put them up there. Also, Dorrance Armstrong as a number 3 guy. I already mentioned Leighton Vander Esch to have Damone Clark as another off-ball linebacker. And then the interior guys, Osa Ogunzua, and then Mozzie Smith. Mozzie Smith, I think we both really liked coming out of college, but is a first year run stuffing interior defensive lineman. Those guys take some time. So this is going to be a lot of times the pass rush and run defense kind of go together. This time I actually feel pretty differently about it. I really like this pass rush. I don't love the run defense. So I'm giving it a tier 4 run defense, but a tier 1 pass rush.
Yeah, a lot of this is going to come down to is Smith ready because
Mm-hmm.
they need him to be ready, and they probably overdrafted him for positional value and draft rankings. Taking him 27th, but you know he for what they really needed on this team, he kind of fits the bill better than anybody, right? So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think that he's going to be an important part of this defense early on. And like you said, I mean, this comes down to Lawrence and Parsons being the guys again because they are fantastic. I would, it's easy to say depth, but this team is dangerously close to Dante Fowler playing a lot of snaps on this team, which I don't love.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like I'm okay with sacrificing some depth if your starters are Michael Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. Like
Right.
that's
Mm-hmm.
worth keeping. So yeah, if some of these guys in the middle really pan out, you look at Mozzie Smith, you look at Jabril Cox at linebacker. This could be a good group. It's a great group, but yeah, I mean there are some weaknesses, but I mean just along with that too, like I'd rather have weaknesses in the run defense than pass defense. I'd rather have a stronger pass rush. Just what the game is. That's what it is this year. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As for the kickers, I'm a little worried the Cowboys forgot that kickers are a part of football because there are 2 guys are currently on the roster. You have Tristan Vizcaino, former New England Patriot, who went 0 for 0 in his time there. So there you go. He might have had, yeah, no. So I don't really understand. He's on BFF Pro Football Reference as a playing there played 2 games, but no kicks. Maybe he was a backup kicker. I don't know what happened there.
yeah.
But you also have, he kind of bounced around the league. He hasn't played very much at all. Their other guy is an undrafted free agent for the kicking positions. So again, who knows of this stuff? That's Brandon Aubrey. Who knows of this stuff? Tier 5 kicking unit. At least on paper.
Yeah, I would imagine Aubrey ends up kicking for this team. We'll see if it works out. It's kind of up and down when it comes to kickers, so you never really quite know until they play. So maybe Aubrey's the guy. Maybe he's good. Good punter. I like Brian
Yeah.
Anger. So there's at least that.
Tampa Bay should have never let Brian Anger go. He one of the bigger mistakes.
Yeah. Who's their? I mean, they've had what is it? Suck up. That's their guy, right?
Suckup is the kicker. They had they drafted Jake Camarda last year, who made that incredible game saving recovery against Carolina.
Yeah, he's been okay though.
Yeah, no, he's been good, and he's like one of those like weird athletic. I don't know. He's been a lot of fun. I'm not mad about our kicking situation, our punting situation. I'm just saying, maybe didn't have to let Brian Anger leave.
Yeah. So overall, I do like this Cowboys team. Like, I still would have it a tier below. We're going to get the Eagles here, probably the 49ers is like the top of the NFC. But I do think they're in the tier 2 of that NFC. And maybe if something happens to the Eagles or 49ers, they can compete and make the Super Bowl. But I do think they need something happen. They need something happen to someone else to make the Super Bowl in my mind. They went 12-5 last year. Where do you have them?
Yeah, I still think they're going to be very good. I still think they're going to be very good. I have them winning 11 games this year. I have 11-6, which some people might say, wait, you have them worse than last year? No, it just that's I don't pay attention to last year's. It's not an equation of last year plus or minus the talent you added this year. I think it should still be very good.
Yeah, schedule's kind of mid tier, so 18th most, 18th,
Okay,
one of the most, on the basically league average schedule rating, strength of
hmm
schedule rating, is what I was trying to say. I can't talk
gotcha.
today,
You're
but
good. We got it.
I think overall, like, I do see a scenario where they're pretty good. I agree. I would probably
So
lean over.
you say over the over 11. That's a pretty high over.
Yeah, give me 12. Give me 12-5. 12-5
Okay.
again.
Okay, all right. Well, you are always known for being a big Cowboys fan.
I value stars. I kind of value stars in the league, and I think you can critique some of this roster. You can critique Prescott. You can critique McCarthy, which we didn't even get to him like taking over play calling. We'll see how that works out.
Hmm
But there are a lot of stars on this team that can win football games, and I think I just value that.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Eagles then. Broad strokes. Why did you have the Eagles as winning the division? It feels like this is probably the consensus pick by many people. The team that was, that nearly won it all last year.
Yeah, I mean, wire to wire, they were one of the best teams in football, maybe the best team in football in stretches last season. There's not a lot of bona fide weaknesses with this team. Like, Jalen Hurts took the leap to maybe a top 5 quarterback level, and maybe an MVP candidate, which is a huge thing for, future success of this franchise and current success of this franchise. I think they got stronger at running back. They got receivers at Hurts' disposal. They got a good offensive line, even if it's aging a little bit. I guess the one question I have for the Eagles is, like, they lost some dudes on defense. I really have loved their drafting strategy over the last couple of years, and I do think they've drafted good players. Does it hurt in the short term? Some of the young guys are going to expect to step into roles and be important. Like, they're going to ask a lot of some of these younger guys, first, second year players. Does that hurt the short term, even though I think long term they are building a team that can be very successful for the next 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, it's interesting because they lost some players. They lost some veteran players, but they have young guys who should be able to step in and do, and could do well. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. So starting off, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. This is about as good of a head coach quarterback combo as there is. There's maybe, there's definitely, a couple that you would argue ahead of it, but still it's, I have tier ones across the board here for Hurts and Sirianni. Hurts was an MVP candidate last year. I think Sirianni should have been a coach of the year candidate if he wasn't. Both those guys were incredible. And, Sirianni, this sort of new school, analytically driven head coach who's been just really great so far for Philadelphia, especially last season. Hurts, obviously, what he did last year. I mean, the question isn't, were these guys great last year? The question is, can they replicate it? I'm going to bet on yes, but some people will bet on no.
Yeah, I would bet on yes too. I think Sirianni's been a good coach. I really liked him his first year too. I think he's just continually done a pretty good job with this team. Obviously did a great job this past year, and then Hurts took the leap. I mean, where did Hurts end up in your quarterback rankings?
Fifth.
Fifth. Okay, so is the gap to so? I guess let's play a game here. What is the bigger gap? Jalen Hurts to 1 or Jalen Hurts to the next NFC quarterback?
So Jalen Hurts to 1 or Jalen Hurts to Sam Howell. No. To well, I guess that would be. I think I have Geno Smith as my next one. The gap's closer to Jalen Hurts to 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in that conversation for sure.
Yeah.
And you could even talk about some of those guys at the top. He's a little more proven than them too, especially if you're like we both like Justin Herbert a lot. Jalen Hurts went out and proved it last year. He won playoff games, and he was really impactful. I had questions about him heading into the season. I didn't love what I saw from that Tampa Bay playoff game 2 years ago, and he has seemingly figured it out. Now, granted, as we're about to get into here, having improved skill position really helps a quarterback succeed, but he's also making the throws and, doing the right things. And I mean, basically, if you talk about his work ethic since he was in college, it's beyond compare.
Yeah, let's talk about those skill position guys. The running backs, they added DeAndre Swift. I like. I'm going to give it a tier 3 running back room. We also have Kenneth Gainwell in the mix. I would like to see them have another receiving option. You got AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, excuse me, and third receiver option. Currently is listed as Amalade Zacchaeus, who might not be might not be striking fear into the hearts of opposing defenses, but you got Dallas Goedert to be a really good number 3 option. So you have a
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3, really 2 number 1 receivers and, a top 10 tight end in the league, maybe top 5 tight end in the league. I don't know. I'm still giving a tier 1 receiving room. I would like them to have a good 4th option, but when that's my criticism, it's tier 1.
Yeah. What was your running back grade?
I gave it tier 3.
Yeah. I like Swift a lot. I think the talent level's there. I think he is a guy also who's going to be impactful in the passing game. He was in Detroit, and I think he can really help his team in the passing game. And, I just think he's better than Miles Sanders. And, you mentioned Kenneth Gainwell. I think Rashad Penny, he's another guy when he's been healthy has been
Yeah.
pretty good too. And he's another guy they have on that roster. So there's a lot of skill position talent, especially in that backfield. And you're looking at guys like Penny, Swift, and Hurts all running the ball. That's really dangerous. And I do like this receiving core. Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. That's a really good trio to start with. I'm with you. The 4th options could be better. Like, I feel like Quez Watkins is a guy we've been waiting to be like better than what he actually is. But
Mm-hmm.
there's still talent there. Maybe he figures it out this year. But those are a few guys you're looking at this year. It's really deep and talented.
Yeah. And to round out the offense with the offensive line, it's tier 1. You all know it's tier 1 because Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson both made my top 10 tackles list. Landon Dickerson has been really good at guard. Jason Kelsey, I think, I feel pretty consensusly the number 2 center in the league, if not the number 1 center in the league. At least, it's him and Creed Humphrey of Kansas City who are the top 2. They lost Samelo last year, the right guard. They're going to replace him with Cam Jurgens, I believe is how you say his name, who, second round pick from 2022, did not play too much last year, only 35 overall snaps. So he's the wild card. But even if he's not very good, there still should be a very good offensive line with the other 4 options. So tier 1 offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I guess the one thing would be age. You're looking at guys like
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey, and Jason Kelsey is going to be 36 in October. And you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at Lane Johnson, he is 33. So,
That's crazy. It feels like he's him being 33 blows my mind. I don't know why, but I feel like he should be younger.
yeah. It's not the youngest group overall, especially when you're looking at those two. I've said it before. I really like Samalo on this group. And I think too, like if you look at, Jason Kelsey is fantastic, but he is a little bit undersized at center, and they kind of made up for it for having this gigantic human being that looked more like Andre the Giant than an offensive lineman at guard and Samalo. Does that affect it a little bit? Possibly, but I still think Kelsey's just great in his own right that I'm not really worried about it. It's a fantastic offensive line.
Yeah. Moving on to the defense. Coverage is interesting. So you got James Bradbury and Darius Slay, who I think we're both feeling a lot different about the Eagles if they, lost one or both of those guys. Looked like was a real possibility at a certain point this offseason. But they, found a way to keep them both. You also still have Avonte Maddox, a very good number 3 option. Lost a couple. They lost both their linebackers, and while Nakobe Dean and could come in and do some stuff, I think it might take him a minute coverage wise. You also have Nicholas Morrow. Don't know what we're expecting from him. And this is a team that they use all 7 of their coverage players. This isn't one of those teams that it's all their corners doing all the heavy lifting. Reed Blankenship, PFF was a huge fan of him last year. You also have Terrell Edmonds at safety. So I think the corners I love. I think if they had a different scheme, I maybe would have put them as like a tier 1 if they relied on the corners more. Granted, I'm not sure if the corners would be as good as they were last year if they were relied on a bit more. I'm going to go tier 2 for coverage.
Yeah, I think that's fair just because I mean, look, we knew they were probably going to lose some guys this offseason just because of how many free agents they had, just the sheer volume.
Mm-hmm.
But they lost CJ Gardner-Johnson, who I thought was terrific at safety last year, someone they kind of got for basically free last year. It was kind of crazy they just
Yeah.
ended up getting him.
Right.
And Marcus Epps too at safety. Reed Blankenship was good, but in a small sample size and is still pretty young. Now he's stepping in as like a main guy. I think Terrell Edmonds is a pretty good pickup too. Like that was a pretty shrewd move. But yeah, I mean, it's just when there's a variability to change, how much does it affect the team overall? So that's something I'm probably watching this year is how do those safeties step into this team and really kind of make up for the losses? Because that's basically going to be the difference between last year and this year is those two guys at the back.
Yeah, definitely fascinating stuff there. As for the front seven, you have again stars galore with this front seven. I mean, just the starters, the guys who are listed as starters currently: Fletcher Cox, Jalen Carter, Hassan Reddick, and Brandon Graham at the defensive line, and that doesn't even begin to tell the story. You still got Josh Sweat. You still have what's his name? The first round rookie from last year, who I'm
Jordan
blanking on.
Davis.
Jordan Davis. Yeah. Defensive line's incredible. Again, what are we going to see out of Nakobe Dean? He was, a lot of people thought he was a first round talent, fell to round 3 due to some injury concerns, kind of now getting a real shot at being a, down to down starter. Maybe we're going to rely on him a decent amount. I think the linebacker concerns are fair, and I'm going to kind of dock them to tier 2 run defense because of that. And didn't have a great run defense last year, although again, part of that's by design. Safeties do not help out in the run defense, right? It's on the front 7 to stop the run, and really the front, the front 6 really, because teams. It's weird how we call it front 7. But like, what team has 3 linebackers out there? Like none of them. But love the defensive line, tier 1 pass rush, and kind of an easy tier 1.
Yeah, I mean, Sweat, Reddick, and Graham alone is awesome. So,
Insane.
I mean, there's nothing wrong about that. This is where the youth question comes into effect because it's going to be Fletcher Cox, who, isn't the same Fletcher Cox of the last few years, right? Obviously, he's a little bit older. It would be unreasonable to expect him to be awesome year after year again. And it's going to come down to, can the combination of Nakobe Dean at linebacker, Jalen Carter on the defensive line, Jordan Davis on the defensive line, can those guys be ready to go this season? That's a lot of expectations for year 1 and year 2 guys. They are all extremely talented. I would not be shocked one bit if Jalen Carter, day 1, is a absolute star in this league. He has the talent to do that. I wouldn't be shocked if Nakobe Dean, even if he's a little undersized, is a very good linebacker with great sideline-to-sideline ability. But we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it yet on the NFL field. So we need to see that. But, we got to see that before we kind of grade them at that level. And I think that's the only thing that could hold this team back a little bit, even if I still think it's going to be a fantastic defense and probably in the top 10, is how do those guys step into bigger roles? Because there's theoretically, between Davis, Carter, Dean, and Blankenship, that's 4 young guys on this defense that are first or second year that are expected to be players basically right away.
Yeah, there's a ton to like about a lot of this, but there are some of those concerns. Completely agree. For kickers, Jake Elliott, I consider tier 1 for Jake Elliott. His past 2 years, he's had 87% last year and over 90% in 2021. But over the course of his career, 84.7 over the course of his career. I'm going to give him tier 2. I've been, he's on a hot streak though. Jake Elliott.
Yeah, he's a good kicker. He's been good for them. This was a really good special teams group last year, except for when they brought that punter back for the Super Bowl, which was a mistake. So overall, it's been a good special teams. This team is good. I mean, let me pull up the rankings here, but I mean they're great on offense, they're great on defense, and they're really good on special teams, or they can be really good on special teams. They actually didn't grade well at all in special teams. I'm surprised, but. Just look at that group overall. Offense and defense, they were top 3 in the league. There's not much to dislike about this team.
Yeah, and I wonder how much that grade hurt by, you lose a punter, towards the end of the season. That's going to hurt that. But yeah, plenty to like about this Philadelphia Eagles team. Definitely going to be in the conversation for best teams in football, not just best teams in the NFC. I think, you know, they're probably going to be most people's favorites in the NFC this year, I would assume, although there's a couple other teams you could argue. I'm predicting 13 wins for Philadelphia. I'm buying into the hype. I think they're still going to be very good. They still can pass the ball incredible. Again, tier one quarterback play, tier one wide receiver play, tier two coverage play. That usually wins you Super Bowls. If they could do that, that's my prediction. If they do those three things, like they're probably going to be they're going to be a Super Bowl contender for sure.
And they were close to winning last year.
Yeah.
They can definitely do it again. They have all the capability. And the biggest thing is, I mean, of the Super Bowl contenders, they have the easiest path. Even with having to play a good team in the Cowboys twice and a playoff team in the Giants twice, they have the easiest path to a Super Bowl because they're in the lesser conference. And that's a huge advantage to them right now to where they can make this run.
Yeah, here's what's crazy about. So, looking at their list, there's 9 total categories that we evaluate. I have them with 5 tier ones, so 3 tier twos, and then 1 tier 3. That's where they're at. I mean, this is like if we say Washington's good because they don't have any flaws. This team and their 1 tier 3 is halfbacks, which we always talk about aren't that important, especially for this team, aren't that important. This is a team that basically has top 10 at every single position group.
Yeah. Yeah, they're talented. There's not much to dislike about this team. They are the favorite. I think they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. Just because of the path. Like I think Kansas City is probably graded out as the better team, but I think Kansas City is the tougher path. So I mean, they are definitely in the conversation as one of the top 2 teams to come back and win this thing.
Yeah, definitely. But then obviously it gets weird where it's like, last year we kept kind of also my thought process with the Eagles were the favorites to win the Super Bowl all year because they, the Chiefs have to play the Bengals and, the Bengals had to play the Bills. But the issue was then you still get to the point where the Chiefs then have to, play the Eagles and the Eagles couldn't quite get it done. I don't know necessarily how to get that much better this year, but I think if they just maintain what they did and maybe even get a little bit worse, that could still be a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah, it could be. I guess the one thing is like if Jalen Hurts is an MVP. That would be the one thing. But I mean, he was pretty close to that last year.
Yeah, but say like I know they pretty much got that from him last year.
Yeah, so I mean, there's not much to really hate about this team. I just think, I mean, it just didn't work out for them in the Super Bowl. It really just came down to that. They had chances to win that game. They just ran into Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. All right. So that is our show. The first division preview officially in the books.
Yeah, we have 7 more to go after this. This was fun. This is a fun division to start with. The rest of the NFC is not going to be as fun, but this was a good teaser to get us going here. Like I said, it's getting close to football season.
I love that. The way hey, tune into next week when we have a less fun show.
We're going to talk some
board for the rest of the month, so make sure you're hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, we're going to talk some Lions football next week. Everyone better get excited.
Yeah, I've become like a huge Lions hater.
Yeah, because you don't buy in the preseason. The funny thing is, I was thinking about it. Like the Eagles were the trendy like late offseason pick, and they were one of the few times where it's actually like worked out. Where it was like, oh, they're really good. Actually, people were right to get excited about this team.
I made a video about this.
Go ahead.
I'll cut you off. Like I made a video about this of like the dark horse teams and how often they hit. It's like they make the playoffs like roughly like 40% of the time.
Yeah.
So it's like there's been a few times where it works out, but like and that's you can't just look at that and say, okay, well then it's just more one of those things where it's like you gotta look at each individual case for sure. But I think that definitely people get excited about the new thing. One, just because it's new doesn't mean it's going to be better.
Yeah, and I definitely think that's fair. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. We'll talk about that more next week. We're going to get into it. I'm excited. The Lions are the bandwagon team.
Yeah. Yes. Anthony says we in the dog days of summer. I think we're I feel like we're in the it's exciting now. My birthday is tomorrow. A lot of good stuff going on.
Oh, nice. What are you doing?
Nothing much. I always like to just like on my birthday. I'm like I just want to like get some fast food and like watch some movies, like not even not leave the house. That's my ideal birthday.
Fast food.
Yeah.
You got to get like a steak or something.
I'm not I don't need I want like a lazy I don't want to do I don't want to have to go out anywhere. I don't want to have to do anything.
You can make the steak.
Well, why is that better than just like getting a pizza?
Because do you, man? It's your birthday. Who am I to say anything? You know, I guess it's fine. You know, pizza's
I
good
mean, I
too.
don't know. I might get like I might get like some like Miller's Ale House, like get that to go or something.
Yeah, treat yourself to some mellow mushroom maybe instead of just
Sure,
Pizza
yeah.
Hut.
I just meant like get takeout in general.
Yeah, that's fair. What's your go-to pizza place?
I'm a Pizza Hut guy. I know that's a very hot take. Some people love Pizza Hut, some people hate Pizza Hut, but I've always been Pizza Hut.
Are you pro or anti stuffed crust?
I love stuffed crust. Yeah, stuffed crust is good. Are there
All right.
anti-stuffed crust people out there?
I don't know. Like, I guess lactose intolerant people.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's the. I mean, you kind of part of why you like why Pizza Hut is the go-to is because of their stuffed crust.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I like Domino's flavor more, but like,
I had
I
Domino's one
also
time. It was the worst pizza experience of my life. I had it like because I've had it in the past and I didn't mind it, but I had one here like I don't know 6 months ago because my car was in the shop and I just I was like I'll just order pizza for lunch. Took 3 hours to get here and it tasted like it wasn't edible. It was like that. I know that the saying the bread tastes like cardboard. It's like a It's like a joke. It legitimately tasted like cardboard. Like I thought it was like that. So I don't know if I just had a bad experience or what, but I've sworn them off for a bit.
yeah, that sounds like a bad experience. I do like their flavors with their crust and such though, but I'm kind of a pizza snob sometimes. Like
Okay.
I'll willingly drive like 45 minutes to like what I think is the best pizza spot here.
Okay.
And I told that to my wife once and we went and she's like, "Why are we driving way out here? This is absurd. This was a big waste of time, but it's an excellent pizza. It's I'll give them a shout out. Thunderbird Pies in Dallas. Go check them out. They're
Okay.
fantastic.
Yeah. There you go. There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, I love pizza. I do. So that's fair. I just,
Little Caesar is also a dark horse for the price. I think it's more than haven't they raised it since $5? But like
yeah.
because I haven't had it in a minute. But like that was when I had no money. Like that was like my like one like treat a week was like I'd get like a $5 pepperoni Little Caesars and just like and that would be my food for the day.
Yeah, when I was in college, they were really close to when I was in junior college, it was really close to my junior college campus. And
Okay,
I think it was 5.33 you get the big box of pizza, which was like two meals, and then a bottle of soda. And I mean
gotcha.
that's fantastic. Like that's
Hmm.
bang for your buck, that beats everything. Everything's too expensive nowadays. That's a steal.
Yeah, you complained about the prices last show too. You're really frustrated about
I
this.
I can't get over this. I literally, they used to do the whole promotion used to be Subway $5 footlongs. A
Hmm.
foot-long sandwich at Subway is like $13 now.
It's
Like
absurd.
this is insane. Like how did this happen?
In fairness, that $5 footlong thing, I worked at Subway for a couple years, and it was people come in all the time like I'll have the $5 footlong. Like that hasn't been a thing in years.
Yeah, well, it was a great commercial at the time. It was very
It was
catchy. But
yes,
still, I mean, the fact that now footlongs are $13 or whatever it is now after taxes and all that, it's just insanity. I don't know. I don't know what we've done to this world to where everything needs to be this expensive.
and
And why
it
aren't we
takes
writing our politicians every day to fix this?
and it takes forever. That's what drives me crazy. It's like I wanted to like it's supposed to be fast food. I'm supposed to and like I got there's a new Taco Bell opened up nearby, and I'm like okay great I'll go there. I've been there twice. Both times it's taken like I order online because I wanted to just be able to go in there, pick it up, and leave.
Yeah.
And it's like both times like it's been like at least 20 minutes after I've shown up that they give me the food. Like I don't know why am I waiting this long? I'll go to a nicer restaurant.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the five they've stayed consistent with their $5 box, but I can tell you I've gone to Taco Bell near me two or three times and pulled up in the drive-through and nobody has answered. And
Yeah.
it's not like I'm picking like an obscure time. It's like, oh, it's like 5 in the afternoon. Okay.
Uh-huh. Right. Yeah.
Shout
Yeah.
out to Panic at the Disco. Um
Sure. Yeah, no. That is our I think that's our fast food rant for for anyone who's still listening. 23 people still listening right now. Actually, 25 went up.
wow,
People
look
are
at that.
enthralled by our fast food talk.
Uh I guess so.
Popeyes is the best.
Uh,
That's
Popeyes
number
is
one.
great.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what else I like. I actually do like KFC. Like I think they're good.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not my favorite,
Um,
but it's fine.
I like In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah, that's
In it,
good, but I don't none here, unfortunately. I always
yeah,
every time I go out west, I get In-N-Out Burger. And
In,
I think there's a Raising Cane's opening up in Orlando, so I'm pumped up for that.
they're solid. They're
Mhm.
solid. In-N-Out Burger has also stayed cheap, which is nice. So
Uh,
you know. So anyway, that's my rant about food prices again. This is insanity. I'm sick of spending money.
yes. All right. Well, everyone, make sure that you Venmo Kyle so he can eat fast food as much as possible. Thank you to everybody. We do appreciate you listening. Kyle, did you let him know where to find us on Twitter?
No, we'll do that right now. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. That is at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin. And make sure to follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That is at On the Sideline JK.
Yes, of course, if you like audio only podcast, anywhere you get your podcast, this is available. Just search On the Sideline Podcast. We do this every Wednesday at 5, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, anything else?
No, I've done football. I've done grocery prices. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, all right. Again, thank you to everybody. We do appreciate it. Until next time, have a good one.
Peace.